Chicago-based Bitcoin payment provider Strike has raised $80 million in a Series B funding round led by 1031 and includes investors like Washington University in St. Louis and the University of Wyoming. Joining us now is Jack Mahler, CEO of Strike. Welcome, Jack. So, Jack, this announcement is notable, I think, for two reasons. One, because it's pretty hard to raise money right now because of the so-called crypto winter. So, it's very impressive. And two, the conventional wisdom is that crypto as a form of payment, or Bitcoin as a form of payment, hasn't really taken off. That might be totally incorrect. Please correct me if that's wrong. But I'd like to hear a little bit about, could you just provide some data about how Bitcoin and crypto is being used as a form of payment? Because I think a lot of people think that use case has not quite taken off.
Yes, I can do that. But first, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think the reason that, to be clear and not to be too harsh, I think it's Bitcoin and the Lightning Network that we're particularly excited about, and understanding why others are excited about it when it comes to merchants, acquirers, issuer payments, university endowments, investors, is understanding a little bit about the history of payments. But Bitcoin can allow for settlement cheaper, faster, and more global. Far less fraud. It's cash final, so there is no cost of capital. So I'd be interested in getting into all of it, but it is a groundbreaking innovation because you have a digital instrument that can move at the speed of light and settle at virtually no cost. That's a lot of word salad, and I'm really excited to be here and to talk about it. But plain speak, real quick, is for the novice on the couch, it does something that payment networks have never been able to do in the history of payment networks, and I can explain why. But that from a high level is why everyone's excited.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Can you just give a few examples of areas in which it's actually being actively used? Because I think that's where a little bit of the disconnect is. People aren't seeing it in action.
Yeah, so let's just keep it super simple and go through a little bit. This may be long-winded, but how do you guys, riddle me this, how do you digitally send a piece of paper? How do you digitally send a bar of gold? How do you digitally send a fine art painting? It's a trick question. You can't. So value transfer protocols like Visa, like Western Union, like SWIFT plus correspondent banking, they're promises of future settlement. The only way that you can digitally broker settling assets that aren't natively digital is with a sense of credit. And that's why they take a very long time. That's why they are very expensive. They require a lot of intermediaries. They require creditworthiness, and there's risk there, and there's promise of future settlement, which requires float and cost of capital. And that's where you get interchange fees. That's where you get high exorbitant remittance fees. Now, the big aha moment is Bitcoin is a digital instrument and it's bearer. And so all of a sudden value can be encompassed in bytes of data. So when you swipe your Visa card and the machine that's reading it opens the message from Visa, inside of that message is instructions on how to settle later. Your card payment doesn't actually settle for 2 weeks, and it's really expensive to do that. It could be reversed. There's chargebacks. It's very complicated. It's very painful. Inside of a Lightning Network payment is money. The message is the money, and the money is the message, which removes settlement delays, exorbitant fees, all the intermediaries required, which is like, holy cow, that's way more efficient, cheaper, better, more global than settling with promises of future settlement on other assets. Now, to finish this all off, you'd go, well, that's cool, but I don't want to go to Starbucks and pay in Bitcoin. And what my company does and what a lot of the other companies are doing is that's not the point. Visa doesn't actually move dollars either. They effectively move credit liabilities. So what we can do is allow you to go to Starbucks and spend dollars and allow Starbucks to receive dollars, but we use Bitcoin as the value transfer protocol to get the value between you and Starbucks, as opposed to a Visa, or from you to Nigeria as opposed to a Western Union, or for you to London as opposed to SWIFT plus correspondent banking. So it is an absolutely mind-breaking shift in the way that we can settle and escrow value, because we have an instrument that's digital and bearer, and that introduces properties for payment systems that we've never seen before, because to this day, payments have always been promises of future settlement and not real bearer settlement.
So Jack, we look at what a currency is. It's a system, it's a method of payment, it's a store of value, and it's a unit of accounting, right? And you're tackling the method of payment. Now, one country that's doing that as well, El Salvador, that's legalized Bitcoin as legal tender, makes it saves money for people who are, let's say, transferring from one country to another using Bitcoin. That's a given. But as a store of value, the central bank there bought an exorbitant amount of Bitcoin under the president's direction, and the price dropped dramatically. Do you think that sort of, I don't want to call it, we'll call it a spectacle, because in many ways it was this very public, very, showing up, wearing the white baseball cap backwards and the whole tech bro thing of President Bukele. I know you guys are tight, but it was sort of it was a big spectacle of spending all this money of the central bank on Bitcoin, and it collapsed. The price collapsed. Making it a store of value, making that big public announcement hurt your business and its potential as for other countries, let's say, to adopt Bitcoin as a method of payment and as a legal tender because of that kind of a massive loss by El Salvador? Has it hurt using Bitcoin in that method as a method of payment?
No. I don't know, man. I mean, people like to draw me up as an extremely controversial figure, or what did Fortune say? I'm abrasive. Guys, I'm 5'8" and 150 pounds. I couldn't hurt a fly if I tried my hardest. And so, like, does it hurt?
In this whole conversation, I think I'm more abrasive, but it's okay.
No, my point is, listen, people like to assume that I have extreme ties to El Salvador. I don't. I've said it over and over and over. Someone asked my help in conjunction with opinion on Bitcoin. I've been in this industry for close to 10 years, and I've helped people that are 10 years old, and I've helped governments. And I will continue to do it when I think it is in the best interest of the morals and principles that I was raised by. And so that's all I did. My company, we are not government consultants. We have no commercial relationship with the government of El Salvador. And so hold on a second. Go ahead.
Well, 1 year later, now that the Bitcoin as legal tender law has been around for 1 year, can you kind of reflect on what your thoughts are on its success or its what it needs to improve upon in El Salvador in terms of making Bitcoin legal tender?
Yeah. So anyway, no, it doesn't hurt my company at all. I mean, like, we have no commercial relationship. There's no like revenue projections based on advice I gave to a president of a country. And so, no, to answer your question, it doesn't hurt our company whatsoever. I think it's been a success, guys. I mean, what should he have copied what the British pound is doing in the central bank over there? I mean, like, and also, when is this homework assignment due? Was it due in 6 months? Is it due in 12 months? You're talking about a country that's in an emerging market that's been historically crushed by inflation, crushed by central banks such as the Federal Reserve.
Right, but its liabilities are in dollars, and so that's kind of an issue, because now they've expanded their imbalance, if you will. If they're borrowing in dollars, basically, they're not borrowing in Bitcoin for the most part. They're borrowing in dollars, and they took a big bet on Bitcoin going up and then having more dollars down the road. That bet seems to have lost. My question has to do with the question of whether or not that hurts the idea that Bitcoin could be used as a method of payment, because people they're confusing store of value and method of payment. They're seeing how the store of value aspect of Bitcoin has collapsed. And a country like El Salvador, would other countries then adopt it and say, you know what, yeah, we'll take on Bitcoin as a method of as a legal tender, when they're conflating what happened with the central bank versus what you guys are doing when it comes to method of payment?
Yeah, so a few things. No, I don't think, I mean, Bitcoin's use as a store of value, nothing's storing value against the dollar, and that's to the fault of the system, the design of the system, and there's not a lot people could do about that at the moment. I don't know any asset that's performing against the dollar right now, literally none. And then as far as using Bitcoin in a form of payment, I want to be clear, the volatility when it comes to our customers and why we think it's valuable in a payment setting, volatility doesn't matter because we're moving dollars or euros or stable coins on top of it. And so why we think as a corporation it's valuable is because someone like Wendy's can accept dollars without the concept of interchange from Visa. They're like, sign me the F up. And so that has nothing to do with the volatility in anyone's particular stance on using it as a store of value. So do I think that the current market environment is hurting Bitcoin's opportunity as a store of value? No, absolutely I do not. And do I think that volatility in Bitcoin disallows it from being a superior payment rail to something like a Visa or something like a Western Union? Absolutely no, I do not. Volatility is not why we are not using it. We're using it because it's more efficient, cheaper, more global settlement rail.
So Jack, do you think ultimately Bitcoin will be used as a payments rail for the dollar, for other currencies and denominated fiat currencies around the world? And if so, what would make people use Bitcoin versus stable coins winning out in the end?
I do. I really do believe that. The reason that Bitcoin is better than stable coins is because what you want is a value transfer protocol where the value that's being transferred is universally known as value independent of itself. When you have stable coins, there's a liability there. Those stable coins are held in a bank. Like if we all change to a stable coin protocol and those stable coins get frozen, or the guy that manages the account is going through a divorce, does that mean that global trade gets halted? What you want is an independent asset that's it's liquid, it's universally valued, it lives within its own universal monetary protocol so that it's its own thing, and you can interface any cash collateral against it. You can debit and credit dollars against it, you can debit and credit Starbucks points against it, anyone can build anything on top of it, but that's what it allows for, these amazing network effects and economies of scale, and it's open, it's global, no one can shut it down, and so it is the best value transfer protocol in that sense, absolutely. Stablecoins are more replicable of something like a Visa. I'd highly question the efficiencies that they have over stuff that already exists.
All right. Just rounding out the interview, just want to get back to the raise. I just want to know, what are you planning to use the money for, and what was it ultimately like raising money in this environment?
Yeah, so we have relationships with the largest point of sale providers like NCR, and the biggest merchants in the world love the concept of accepting dollars without interchange or cheaper interchange, and people that are making payments that get paid by Visa, like your credit card points, they like the concept of making these payments because we can offer them higher pay rates and higher rewards as well. So the money is to work with the biggest institutions in the world to get them onto this payment rail. And no, raising money in this market, it's something I'll tell my kids about someday. It's been fun. It's part of my job, and I really wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. But I've got some stories over a campfire someday. There's no doubt about that.